Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Hey, welcome back. It is Sarah Larby and you are listening to Where Should I Invest? I've got a great podcast episode for you today. And if you do enjoy these podcasts, don't forget to leave a rating and review. We are going to be talking about apartment syndication. We're going to talk about how to raise money from other high income earners. And we're going to be talking about raising capital, networking, and how to get rid of debt with Jeff Anzalone, who is a periodontist. And he got started investing in real estate, doing apartment syndications, raising capital. He's also a financial blogger, and he invests in Louisiana in the southeast of the USA. And this was quite interesting because, not only is he a physician, but he talks about apartment syndication, raising capital, and doing this much more passively, and how he got rid of a ton of debts very quickly with the strategy that he did. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. And don't forget, if you are looking for more coaching, more information, check out sarahlarby.com. There is the Burr Freedom Community happening right now, and that is available for you to join at any time. Check out the Burr Freedom Community on the website. And now let's bring in Jeff to the show. Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Sarah. Thanks for having me here. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Me too. So for people wondering who you are and what you do with real estate investing, can you give us an overview of how you got to where you are today? I know that's a very loaded question, but we'll start from probably just, a 30,000 foot overview.
I'm actually a full-time periodontist. I practice down here in Louisiana, and I stumbled into real estate because a few years ago we were snow skiing and I had a little accident. I fell on my right wrist. I had like a kid dart in front of me, and I kind of swerved to avoid killing both him and me. And when I fell, that was the first time that I started asking myself questions. What if I wasn't able to provide for my family and work? Because, I kind of need my hands. And that was the first time I've really ever thought about that, because my whole family's, what they rely on is my only one source of income, active income at that time. And that sparked me to start thinking about looking for, I didn't want a second job, but that started to spark me to look around for other sources of income, and eventually got into real estate.
Very cool. So how long ago was that?
The skiing accident was probably 5 to 6 years ago, roughly.
Okay.
In Colorado. And then as I didn't want a second job, but the only thing that I thought that real estate was actually buying property and being my own landlord. And I was like, well, that's not for me. That's not going to happen. But luckily I found some other avenues like crowdfunding. Started doing that a little bit. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just, going online and doing stuff. And some of those, they worked out pretty well. And then I decided to step it up with a website that is actually gone under now, but Realty Shares. I don't know if you remember that website or not, but it was bought out. It was taken over by somebody else. But I invested in an apartment syndication in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And unfortunately, every investor in that lost their money. And that really made me take a step back to, hey, I didn't know what I was doing then, because I was relying on the website to basically, they were pitching, hey, we get pitched deals all the time. We're only putting the best deals on our website. So I was relying and trusting them that they were doing that, which lo and behold, there's hardly any filter, probably, as you know.
Right.
But so the only two things I would look at was the returns and what the place looked like, how good the pictures look. That was it. So it was totally my fault for, investing like that. So that made me really start learning this stuff a lot better. And now I actively blog about it, just share my personal experience.
So, okay, so it sounds like you're a little bit more passive, but just for everybody to get on the same page, so what is your strategy then exactly for what you're doing today?
Well, for what I'm doing is mainly, well, it's 100% passive, just because, most of the people that I associate with are busy professionals, other doctors and attorneys and that sort of thing. So we just don't have the time at this point while we're working to do anything active.
Okay. So you mentioned crowdfunding, and I know the US and Canada work quite differently, right? So can you explain what that is?
So crowdfunding is basically where there's several websites out there, and you can invest in a deal. You could, let's say like that apartment complex. Well, people can put small amounts of money in and have like a little share of that. It's kind of like, people do the Kickstarter, that sort of thing. I don't know if that's in Canada or not, to where you can, if somebody's coming up with a business or an idea, you can invest a little bit of that and money, and you become kind of an owner, kind of like buying a stock in a company. You become like a small owner of that company.
Yeah, I mean, so we do it with like you said, like businesses and companies. I don't think it's as prevalent in Canada as it is in the US. Just, and crowdfunding, where you're going on a website and you're saying, I like this property, I'm going to donate, or not donate, but invest 10 grand of my money. It's more like rates that we do here, when, as options, more so than the crowdfunding piece, but it is quite interesting. So are you then investing your money, in a crowdfunding opportunity, or are you creating that opportunity for others? Walk us through that.
Well, what I'm doing now is I'm actively looking for, operators, sponsors of deals that, and most of them are doing multifamily in the U.S. But that's one of the things that I really changed. So instead of investing my money with a website, I'm like investing my money with like real people now. So I have a pretty good process that I go through. For instance, I met with a group last year. He was actually an ER doctor, Dr. Tom Black at Nepali Capital. He reached out to me, saw my website, he liked what I was doing. So he wanted to know if, if he could basically sort of get with me to, because I was already educating physicians and dentists and that sort of thing, and high income earners. So he basically just wanted to expand the platform. So, I'm out there, I'm educating people. So if people want to invest, like I had a call this morning with a thoracic surgeon up in Indianapolis. He saw my website, he was interested. So he's like, well, okay, I want to do this, but where do I go? Who do I invest with? So what I'm doing right now is I'm actively looking for, and his group is one of them, people that actually, find these deals, they put them together, they manage the property, people that I trust. So I went a whole year meeting with them. I go walk property with them, face to face. And then I just invested with them last month. It was a property in Savannah, Georgia. So people that I personally invest with, that I trust, then what I do is I share that investment with on my email list on my website. So, they kind of know what I'm investing in.
All right. So you're going ahead, you're saying, I'm going to find the right team of people. I'm going to find the right, or I'm going to trust that they're going to find the right deals for me. and then you're investing your money, I guess, a little bit more passively, having them, manage the renos, manage the tenants, all that stuff. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. They have most of these operators, they'll have their own management team that, really no matter where they are or where they're buying property, they can train people there to do it in-house.
Okay, so essentially you're investing your money and you want to share with other physicians or other high net worth individuals, like, here's what I'm doing in addition to working as a physician to, help with, should something happen, you can't use, your body, you can't use your mind, or you can't work for whatever reason, just to have that backup. So are you also raising money from them, or is it more on a coaching basis?
That's a good question. Actually, this year is the first time that I've actually, and literally a year ago, I didn't even know what raising money for other people was. And I started to learn about it. So in March this year, early March, late February, I started, had a group that said, hey, you want to try to, help us out with this raise? And I said, well, I've never done it before. I'll try it. So I just barely started doing it. And then, what happened in March, the whole world shut down, so to speak, with COVID. So that kind of threw a kink in everything. And, people started, pulling out, and, they didn't know what was going to happen, which is rightly so. So, I guess I can count that as my first attempt at doing this, but it didn't, it didn't really pan out that well. And then this last month was really kind of my first official raise, where I've got a separate site. I have a separate group on my website that I call the Passive Investor Circle. That's just for people that are really more interested in this. They're accredited investors. They want to know what I'm investing with. So I basically just emailed the people on that list last month, and that was kind of my first official raise for that Savannah property.
Okay, awesome. So they trust you because you're doing it, you're putting your own money in there, you're a physician, they're physicians, you kind of have some stuff in common in terms of, not a lot of time, and you want to ensure that your money makes money. So give us an example of something that you've invested in the past, and roughly like what it cost you and a return on that project.
Yeah, the majority of the properties that I've invested in are multifamily. They're apartments. I like, I live in Louisiana, so I like to invest in areas of the country that I know about, and that most of the property, well, actually all the property that I invest in is in the Southeast U.S., Dallas, Fort Worth, North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. So really strong growth areas that we're talking already cash flowing properties that have been cash flowing for years. These are mainly Class B plus properties. So real stable. And I think that was a kind of a big, it still is a big drawback right now when people are asking about, hey, with all this COVID going on, what do you think about real estate? Do you think people are going to, quit paying their rent and all that? And it just, the key is, as with passive real estate, is finding, people think it's about finding the deal, and it's about finding that's the wrong question. The right question is, how do you find the right sponsor? So if you find the right sponsor or operator, they're going to know the best areas to invest in, so they're going to know the best deals to do, how to manage it. So in all my investments that I'm personally in, I did not have any of them stop paying this year, due to COVID. I did have a couple of them go from monthly distributions to quarterly distributions, but they're still paying. So again, I think that's the strength of the operator. But the minimum investments of the ones that I've personally been in are $50,000, which is pretty standard here in the U.S. for that. So and most of them are anywhere from that I'm in are a 4 to 6 year hold. So they'll buy a property, they'll start to renovate them, remodel them, gradually raise the rents, and whenever we get our distributions, that depreciation will offset that income. So basically we're getting the distributions tax free, which is, really a lot of these high income people, including myself, that, just get hammered with taxes, really like that idea. And then once it sells, we split the profit with the operator, but we do have to pay capital gains taxes whenever it sells.
Right. Okay. So you get an equity portion as well as a, payments portion, whether it's monthly or quarterly.
Correct.
Okay. So I want to go back a little bit and talk about how, it is an interesting concept. Like for people that want to be hands off, essentially, I would just say definitely do your due diligence. Like you have a perfect example, Jeff, in the beginning where you mentioned that building, that everybody that invested in that building just unfortunately lost money, and that can happen, right? So there's risks, there's pros and cons to every single strategy. So research and then do extra research on who it is that you're giving your money to. Because I'll tell you, like, even in Canada, there's some people that, you get a bad reputation, and unfortunately some people lost money on certain deals. And we know, and I'm not going to name names, but we know some of those people that started raising funds, and unfortunately it didn't go so well. Right. And that is unfortunate because it's very easy to ruin your brand and your reputation. So I want to talk though about how you eliminated essentially $300,000 US dollars of student loan debt. Is it using the strategy, and how did you do it?
So when I was getting ready to finish up my training, we had about 300,000 in student loan debt, but I really wasn't too much concerned with it because I was joining a group practice here in my hometown, and I was going to make pretty decent money. So I guess it's kind of like if you're in college and you're an athlete and you've got a bunch of debt, but you're going to be a professional, football player or something. Well, hey, it's not a big deal. I'll be able to afford it. I don't make that kind of money like a professional athlete, but anyway, so 2 weeks before I finished my training, the deal fell through. So, we had all this debt. We had a 2-month-old. We had already bought our home. And, this was before the 2008 real estate crash. So literally buying a home back then, I called a banker that I knew and I said, hey, look, I'm joining this group, but my wife likes this house. How can we get it? Oh, I know that group. I'll take care of it. Just do it interest only. And just sign. It was like literally like one piece of paper. I mean, it was like nothing. So we had like this interest only mortgage on this house. And I didn't have they don't teach you in medical school and dental school. They don't teach you how to run a practice or start a business, which when you really think about it, that's really scary. That's kind of important to know, but they don't in law school, or I don't know if it's like that in Canada or not, but they just leave that part out. So I had to start networking with people and sort of teach me. And actually I started going back to what I used to do in high school and college and mow yards. So I was probably the most educated yard man probably ever in the
That's funny.
in the U.S. at that time. But when you're that far in debt, you got to do what you can for your family. So I at that time was a very big Dave Ramsey follower. I don't know if y'all are familiar with him very much in Canada, but I followed his strategies. We started off with the smallest debt, paid it off, and then rolled it over to the next one, the debt snowball. And after about 7.5 years of doing that and building my practice at the same time, we were able to erase that debt. So it was a good feeling.
Very cool. Awesome. And I will also add, because you're talking about going to like an actual bank and getting like an interest only payments plan. I mean, that's like hard money for us, or private money, right? So like, and the banking system is so different, but I do want to take a moment to mention it, because I do have a lot of Canadian listeners, and also, potentially some US ones as well. But in Canada, the banks are much more strict and reserved as well. Like we have like 6 big banks. That's it, nationwide. Those are the banks, and there's trust companies and there's credit unions, but they're really regulated. So to go to a bank, I mean, if you're going to buy an investment property, as an example, or something to live in, you can put, if you're going to live in it, you can put 5 or 10% down or 20%. If it's an investment, we have to put 20% down if you're not living in it. But then it's going to be interest and principal payments. So that is pretty cool that you were able to get an interest only loan payment for that time frame, and that helped you out. I will say, you know, it's not impossible in Canada. It just will not be with the banks. So we just have to work with private lenders or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and this was actually like a local bank, so it wasn't a really big bank. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I went to high school with the guy's dad, and that was the banker, so he knew me. So it was like a good old boys network. So, which you know, you probably can't do that now, but you know, I live in Louisiana, so you know, we may be able to pull it off, but I don't know.
That's interesting. I mean, you know, in a way, I think that contributed to the downturn in 08 and 09, right? Is there's just a lot of independent banks and a lot of different practices that were kind of, you know, decided by that specific bank. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So for us in Canada in 08 and 09, like, you know, we felt it, but it was definitely not the same at the same extent as you guys, which is quite interesting, right? So like there's pros and cons of investing in both markets, but you know, there's more flexibility, I guess, in the US for you guys too. Like, just curious, like how much is, I don't know if you know this, but do you know how much you can get away with in terms of a down payment in the US for investment properties?
Well, the quote, the standard is 20%, but I have heard it. I've got a patient that he wheels and deals with these banks, and he owns like 80 something units of apartments in my area. And, you know, he'll call a bank and then he'll call another, hey, this guy's giving me this and this, and he can get it down to 5%. He told me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I've heard too. Like, and I think if you're in the like military or something, you can get away with like a 2.5% as well. And then, but 5% I've seen it is common too. Cause when I speak to Americans and they like, we talk about this, they are shocked that we have to do 20% down for all the investment properties. But, you know, it is what it is. Different countries, different rules, different regulations.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a different question, just in terms of, you know, obviously your job and you've got a family, you've got, you know, a lot of balls that you're juggling in the air. You know, when you looked at the strategy, do you still think that passive income was the best strategy for you? And if so, why?
Well, yeah, I think it's important if you're married, and even if you're not married, to sit down and kind of write out your goals and write out what you're wanting. Because, you know, I'll have investor calls and I'll say, well, why do you want to get in real estate? Well, I just want some passive income, and that's about it. So there's nothing else. So you kind of have to have a why. You know, start with your why, the Simon Sinek book, to really keep you motivated, so to speak. So when we sat down, you know, we said, well, we're only relying on one income source, but we want multiple income sources. How are we going to get that? Well, it looks like real estate's our best thing. Is what a lot of people are in. But we also, and our kids still live at home, you know, they're teenagers. But we also wanted to spend more time with them, you know, travel, that sort of thing. I didn't want a second job. And, you know, looking at if I were to buy my own investment property, you know, either I was going to have to, you know, be part of it, or my wife. And we just at this time, you know, I'm not saying that when our kids go off to college, I won't buy my own, and I probably will. I'm looking forward to doing that at one point, but for us and for our goals, passive was the best strategy for us. So I think that you should start with your, you know, setting up exactly what you're wanting, your goals, and then that's going to guide you, you know, down your path to get what you want.
Yeah. All right. So some great points for sure. Can you share, like, just out of curiosity, like how many hours a week, you know, you work, just so we all have an idea of, you know, when you're so busy and you're juggling balls, like, you know, what does that even look like? What's your schedule as a physician?
I practice Monday through Thursday. I usually get to the office around 7 and leave around 3:30 or 4, straight through. And then on Fridays are the time that I work on my real estate business, my blog, and I kind of do that a little bit Monday through Thursday as well. So I'm sort of doing all that, but I always made it a point that whenever I leave here at 3:30 or 4, then that's family time. I don't want to carry anything else at home, and I've stuck with that, and that's really helped out a lot. Being able to be there for my kids and watch them grow up. Because for your listeners that have kids, I mean, they're literally gone in the blink of an eye. It's scary how quick it goes, but that's what we wanted to do.
So it sounds like you're able to have like a lifestyle, right? Because like you're not working 100 hours a week. It sounds like it's fairly balanced, even though you've got the job with the physician and at the hospital. You're able to spend the time with the family, and you're able to do all of that stuff. Like, was it always this way, or has it just recently been because of the passive income that you've regained a bit of that style ability?
I think it's a little bit different for me being a dental specialist and being a practice owner. I don't, I can do whatever I want. So when I started my practice, that's how I wanted to do it. Unfortunately, most of the dentists and physicians that get out now, they can't do that. They're in such high debt when they get out, and to go and open a practice, it would just be too much money. So they join a group, they join a hospital, they join another practice. So they're at the mercy of, what they're doing. It's typically, and I talk to people all the time, it's typically Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday. They're taking call a lot. So they're working a lot of hours, and which unfortunately is leading a lot to what's called doctor burnout. And they're just they're having, with insurance regulations and that change every year, and they get lower and lower. You had to do more paperwork. So you actually have to work more each year to make about the same or a little bit less than you were making the previous year. And that just wears on people, and with taxes and, as a high income earner, I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the US, we have like this big target on our chest, like, hey, there's a sucker right there. So we get pitched deals, for stuff all the time. And people tell me about these deals that they're investing in. I'm just like, man, you don't have a clue what you're getting into. And it was like me, with that Tulsa deal, I didn't have a clue what I was getting into, and I got what was coming to me. So, the reason I started my blog, debtfreedr.com, is to kind of help people not, make a lot of the mistakes that I've made, or don't make some of the mistakes that I would have made in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good insight. I mean, it is important. Every strategy has, some good and some bad, and some pros and cons, and mistakes that can easily be avoided, provided that, you learn about it, and you learn about what can go wrong, or find, as much resources and education as you can on that topic. So it is interesting. I mean, in terms of, how I also do passive income, here in Canada, is I actually loan out my money on mortgages, individual, people, and they actually go to trust companies. There's 3 trust companies in Canada that will do this with registered funds, or you could do it where it's more passive: Community Trust, Olympia Trust, and then there's one out west. I think it's Western Trust, and that is like a big thing that we do over here in terms of investing. And then there's also like REITs, and there's also like, different projects that you can invest in. I don't know if it's as expansive as obviously you guys out in the US. So do you know, like, have you talked to any Canadians looking at, purchasing these deals in the US yet?
I do talk to Canadian investors quite a bit, but just kind of depends on the operator or the sponsor that you work with. Some of them will allow outside, the U.S. investors. Some of them don't. So it just depends on who you work with.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting to know too. Awesome. Jeff, thanks for sharing your insights. The next part of the podcast is our lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions. You're going to give me the first answer that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
I think so.
All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite real estate investing book?
I have to turn around and look on my shelf. I have so many of them. Actually, it's not a real estate investing book, but it helped me to get into real estate. It's The One Thing, and that allows me to constantly focus. There's so much going on with my life, but what's the one thing that I need to be focusing on? So that's really helped me guide me down my path.
Awesome. That's by Gary Keller.
Yep.
All right. Question number 2. I don't know if you're a podcast listener, but if you are, do you have a favorite podcast?
I like, I'm a very big podcast listener. I like 2 of them. I like Get Rich Education, and that's Keith Weinhold. And I like The Wealth Ability Show, which is Tom Wheelwright, which works with Robert Kiyosaki.
All right. Very cool. Number 3, aside from work and real estate, what do you do for fun?
We love to travel with our kids. We all play tennis and like to lift weights and stay active.
All right. Very cool. Number 4, if you lost all of your money and your assets tomorrow, how would you start again?
Well, I've got a skill, that I was trained in. So I'm thankful that I'm able to do that. So I would start to build up my practice again, knowing what I know, and then funnel anything that was left over into real estate.
All right. Awesome. And last question, if somebody has $50,000 and they want to get started, how would you recommend they spend it?
I guess it depends on what they're looking for, but if they're looking to invest it, I love real estate syndications. That's typically what we invest in. But again, like I was telling you earlier, set your goals early on, and that'll guide you through the process.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, where can my listeners reach out and find out more about you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, debtfreedr.com. And if they go to debtfreedr.com/free guide, I put together like a little passive income guide on there, that how I got started and the basics of it.
All right. Very cool. Any final last words of advice?
Just, like I said, with setting your goals early on is going to really help you, because you're going to get pitched stuff. You're going to get sidetracked. Life's going to happen. You're going to have, unfortunately, issues that are going to come up. But if you just set those goals, and whether you have to put them on the wall or whatever, that you review them all the time and it's constantly in your mind, that will lead you to success.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Jeff. And great advice, great insights. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?